University of South Dakota is seeing larger incoming classes each year. We'll bring you the story on how school officials are handling an unexpected number of new dorm residents.
We'll also have highlights from last weekend's tailgating, football game, and downtown's annual Ribs, Rods, and Rock and Roll.
USD is reaching out during Suicide Prevention Week, and it's celebrating Constitution Day. Those stories and more coming up. But first, the latest headlines with Courtney Sterrett.
According to the New York Times, the Obama administration suspects that the attack on Libya that killed the American ambassador and 3 other diplomats may have been more than spontaneous. Officials in Washington studying the events of the past 24 hours have focused on the difference between the protests on the American embassy in Cairo with the attack on the consulate in Libya. The attacks in Libya were orchestrated with rocket-propelled grenades and mortars, suggesting that it was planned. Sioux Falls recently banned texting while driving in a unanimous vote by the City Council on September 4th. In a 7-0 vote, the council made it a crime to send and receive electronic messages while operating a vehicle within city limits. Sioux Falls Police Chief Doug Barthel says it will still be legal to make handheld phone calls, use GPS navigation, and hands-free devices, and the police will not make any stops without visual proof of texting. And many of you have probably noticed the cooler temperature today as a nice break from the heat. Expect this fall weather to last for the rest of the week with highs around 71 for tomorrow and around 73 for Friday, with lows in the 50s and mid-40s. Expect partly cloudy skies and winds from the west and southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour throughout the rest of the week into the weekend. And those are your headlines.
The University of South Dakota ended the spring semester without a dean of students. A search was started to fill the spot, and within 2 months, a selection was made. Dr. Kimberly Grieve was introduced to the public on July 2nd. Dr. Grieve began her new duties here on July 30th, but she's held similar positions in the past.
I was a dean of students at Lourdes University for the last 5 years, so it's a position I'm very familiar with.
Also set new goals for the 2012-2013 academic year.
This year, one of my goals is really to get students more engaged in campus activities, to get students to stay here more on the weekends and become more involved in all sorts of events on campus.
Dr. Greaves says she hopes to make a big impact on the USD community.
Freshman class sizes have grown in recent years. Coyote News' Chase Christensen took a look at the cause.
In the fall of 2011, the University of South Dakota's freshman class made history. Not only did USD see a 9% increase in freshman enrollment compared to 2010, the class of 2015 set a USD record as the largest incoming freshman class in school history. But the class of 2015 may have to relinquish that title now because USD Provost Chuck Staben says that he believes this year's incoming freshmen will surpass that record. But what has led to the larger freshman classes of the last 2 years? USD began a 3-year partnership beginning in 2009 with Lawrence & Schiller, a top regional advertising agency located in Sioux Falls. Employees of Lawrence & Schiller were on campus last week working on a new commercial for USD. Paul Rankin says that what makes USD so easy to promote is the progression and the outlook for the university.
The Onward campaign, that TV spot you saw where the buildings kind of built themselves out of the planes, our main ideas with that were really, we produced all these great people, these great leaders, great healers, innovators, but that the school is still always looking forward, that we're never resting on our laurels. It was really, we put it in pretty simple language in the spot itself.
USD Marketing Director Tina Haroldson says traditional students want more than an education.
For that age group of students, sometimes the life experience and the facilities that you offer and kind of their surroundings are as important to them as potentially the degree that they're going after.
Scott Wickman explains how non-traditional students are targeted.
You need to carve this up into little bite-sized chunks so your messaging is more relevant to each audience. If you just shotgun it and say, hey, come back to USD, I'm not giving you an emotional reason to come back, then make them understand that it's doable, it's affordable, and USD is the place you want to do it.
For Coyote News, I'm Chase Christensen.
The South Dakota Board of Regents will release official enrollment numbers on September 25th. Coming up, changes are happening first around campus. We'll show you the MUC expansion plans and additions to student housing rooms. Those stories and more next.
$62 USD freshman, traditional residence hall living has a new twist. As Coyote News' Andrew Bork reports.
I have no negatives for the room that I live in.
I'd probably be a little angry, but I'd get used to it.
It's not the style of living that's different for these residents, it's the location. After enrolled students required to live on campus exceeded room capacity, the university was forced to make extra space. This includes lounges, study rooms, and requiring community advisors to have roommates.
There are a few spaces that have come available, and we're starting now to move students out of the overflow spaces. Like I said, as those regular spaces come available, we'll continue to move people out.
There has been little opposition to what seems like a bizarre change in residence hall living, and the university has taken extra steps to make sure the rooms are as cozy as possible.
The lounges, every student obviously has a bed. We purchased new wardrobes so that they have, in effect, a closet space, and built into that wardrobe is a nice size 2-drawer dresser. We also purchased some new desks, so they have a desk and a chair for each person. Those who are in the large lounges, which are housing up to 4 people, were also treated with getting to keep a couch and a 42-inch flat screen on the wall.
Coyote News was declined access into the residence halls, but students we interviewed seemed to like the temporary changes.
Overall, I think living in a lounge room is a better experience than living with one roommate.
I would rather have a lounge versus a traditional dorm room any day of the week right now.
It's a challenge for us, absolutely, but it's a challenge associated with growth and success and all the great things that are happening at USD.
For Coyote News, I'm Andrew Bork.
There are still empty bedrooms in dorms around campus, but the empty rooms are in buildings not available for freshmen.
The fairly new Munster University Center is already in the remodeling phase as an expansion progresses. Head of Marketing Jeff, the MUC construction is on schedule. Baylor says plans are for the remodeling to be complete in the spring of 2014. When it's finished, the new MUC will include a Qdoba, Einstein's Bagels, and there are tentative plans for a Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A Corporation has been in the news lately for comments made by their CEO. The Student Government Association will host an open mic night Tuesday the 25th in the Freedom Forum. It's a chance for students to express their views on whether or not the restaurant chain should be on USD's campus.
On this week's Kiowa Blog, Chris Jessen has an issue with the stop signs at Rose and Cherry Streets.
They say there are only 2 seasons in South Dakota, winter and construction. And with construction comes little inconveniences that everyone just has to deal with. Take the intersection of Rose and Cherry Streets. Over the summer, the city of Vermilion removed the temporary stoplights in order to install permanent ones. But until those new arms are in place, we're stuck with 4-way stop signs. With pedestrians getting the right-of-way, it should be easy for them to get from one side to the other. Instead, it feels like a game of Frogger, dodging impatient drivers unable to wait 15 to 20 seconds for someone to walk the relatively short distance across Cherry. The South Dakota Department of Public Safety's website indicates that at a stop sign, you must wait until crossing vehicles and pedestrians have cleared, and pull forward only when it is safe to do so. That doesn't mean you should nudge forward as someone walks in front of your car to get them to go faster. It doesn't mean that you should look, see the pedestrian walking across the street, and just go ahead anyways. You may have a big car, but I'd make a rather big dent. So unless you want to make some random pedestrian your new hood ornament, remember, patience is a virtue, and take the extra 15 seconds to wait for them to get to the other side of the street.
Thanks, Chris. Stay safe. Up next, Yote reporter Mandy Ewald takes fitness to a whole new level. Stay tuned for that story and more coming up.
The Coyotes' first home football game wasn't the only event to draw a crowd to Vermilion this weekend. For the 8th year in a row, the annual Ribs, Rods, and Rock and Roll Festival took over downtown Vermilion. In the short amount of time the festival has come to town, committee member Rich Job said the event has consistently grown. This year, it included 2 new events, a chicken wing taste test contest and a pep rally for the Coyotes' first home football game. Job said Coach Joe Glenn and the athletic department were very cooperative in planning the event. Job also mentioned that a Coyote win benefits the Ribs, Rods, and Rock and Roll attendants.
Next Monday will mark 225 years since the U.S. Constitution was signed. To celebrate, the University of South Dakota School of Law, with the help of an endowed fund, brought Judge Roger Woolman to campus to speak on the Constitution.
Preparing these remarks reminded me once again that we take the Constitution for granted. We can take for granted what our founding fathers did for us, and it should help reinforce in our minds that each of us in one way or another should help to keep the Constitution in force. Too often we forget what it took to form this union, how it was not struck by the hand of God, as some people thought, that remarkably talented men, 55 of them, were able to come to a compromise. It wasn't perfect because of the slavery issue, but they set up a union that's existed for 225 years, and we should do what we can to make sure that it remains in effect for at least another 225 years.
Although it was a public event, Coyote News was not allowed to film Woolman's address. If you're looking for a student group that involves more than just sitting around and chatting, a new organization can take you to higher levels. Yote reporter Mandy Ewald checks out the USD Climb Club.
With the new semester started, students across USD's campus are looking for new ways to get involved. This week on the Yote Report, we'll take an inside look at one of USD's very own student organizations, one that meets right here at the USD Wellness Center.
Climb USD has over 45 members and has been on campus for almost a year.
We put it together to kind of promote rock climbing. I mean, we're in eastern South Dakota, so it's not a really popular event.
Students interested in joining Climb USD can sign up at the Wellness Center. The club meets monthly, and all equipment needed, such as harnesses and shoes, can be rented at the Climb desk.
Earlier this year, we did an event called Adopt a Crag, where we went to Palisades State Park in Garrettson, South Dakota, and we built trails and we did maintenance and we cleaned up garbage.
Another activity that Climb USD members partake in is designing their own climbing routes. Routes are color-coded and expire every few months.
For the Yote Report, I'm Mandy Ewald.
Coming up on sports, this football season has been dedicated to the Friedell family, and Taylor Moore has an issue with an Olympic star on More Sports. Stay tuned.
Today on Coyote Sports, the Dome was crowded Saturday for the first home football game of the season. The volleyball team starts its conference schedule Friday, and commentator Taylor Moore takes out an Olympic star. But first, sports headlines. Courtney?
Thanks, Abby. The National Football League isn't expecting to make a deal with its referees anytime soon. Replacement refs are scheduled for the first 5 weeks of the season. The league and the NFL Referees Association are in a lockout over salary and retirement benefits. Even with the replacements, there wasn't a significant difference in the amount of penalties during the first week of play compared to previous years. But some teams are complaining about the replacement refs aren't making the right calls. The National Hockey League and its players are also at odds over contracts. The current collective bargaining agreement expires Saturday, and the NHL has threatened a lockout if a deal isn't reached. The NHL Players Association is appealing the move in Canadian provinces. If the Canadian players receive a ruling in their favor, they'd be able to receive paychecks and train as usual for the upcoming season. The Minnesota Vikings are undefeated so far. The Vikings earned an exciting overtime victory over the Jaguars Sunday. Minnesota quarterback Christian Ponder threw for 270 yards, while running back Adrian Peterson rushed for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Vikings travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts Sunday. And those are your sports headlines.
Thanks, Courtney. Marcus Sims led the Coyotes football team to its first home victory of the season Saturday. The senior running back rushed for 127 yards and 1 touchdown in the 31-21 win over Colgate. Quarterback Josh Vandermatten threw 73 yards and had 2 touchdowns. Vandermatten finished the game with only 3 incomplete passes and 102 total passing yards. The Coyotes have a bye this week. While the football team is resting this weekend, the rest of the fall teams are getting back into the swing of their schedules. The women's soccer team travels to Chicago Friday to take on the Loyola Chicago and Northern Illinois Sunday. The Coyote volleyball team is currently 6-5 on the season. The women start their Summit League. The women start their Summit League in Illinois Friday before on the road at Western Illinois Friday before taking on IUPUI on Saturday. The women's softball team hosts Northern State at home Saturday at 1. USD football coach Joe Glenn announced that this football season would be dedicated to the Friedell family. Coyote News correspondent Casey Bartlett is live at the Muck with USD staff member Joni Friedell.
Thanks, Abby. I'm here with Joni Friedell, who's the director of scholarship at USD, and she's also married to former defensive coach Mike Friedell. Joni, how long has it been since Mike was a coach at USD, and what's his situation today?
It's been about 6 years, actually. In June it was 6 years, and not much has changed. He's still in the care center here in Vermilion. He's not able to converse with people or to interact, but every once in a while we know he understands, and we see a glimmer in his eye and know he's with us still, so that's important.
He was at the football game on Saturday, right? Got to see Jared in
Yes.
his senior game?
Yeah. Well, you know, Jared's on the team. He hasn't gotten much play time, but he just loves being part of the experience and the whole program, and that's been a real benefit for him, especially since he's interested in being a coach like his dad is. And this is his senior year. He'll be the third of our 5 kids to graduate from USD. So
what has it meant to your family then to have this season dedicated to Mike and to have that Coyote community support you through this?
You know, this has been an unbelievable sense of support for our family from the time the accident happened until now. And 6 years later is a long time in the life of a college. You know, you have people that are here that don't even know who Mike is, and we still just get a lot of people asking about him and caring about him and you know, lifting our family up, and that has just been so important, especially the fraternity of coaches. You know, Coach Joe Glenn and Bresky's and Ed Meyercourt and his family, they all have always been there. You know, anything we need, they've been there for us. In the community, you know, one of the things I love about Vermilion and USD is it's a great place for family and friends, and I just can't imagine have been anywhere else and had this kind of support. So
now, you did make T-shirts this season for Mike. So what can you tell me about that? How did it all get started?
Oh, it actually started as a very small thing. It was just family and a few close friends. We wanted to support him and honor him in his career, and it went viral. I mean, we were planning on 20 and we've sold hundreds. So
awesome. If you are interested in purchasing a Team Mike Friedell t-shirt, you can contact Joni through Sunday. For Coyote News Live, I'm Cassie Bartlett.
Cassie, on this week's More Sports, commentator Taylor Moore has some advice for an Olympic athlete.
The Olympic Games are known for being among the greatest sporting events of all time, a moment in which countries take their best athletes and let them compete against each other. As with every sport, some athletes have higher profiles than others. For example, Jamaica has Usain Bolt, who's probably the fastest man in the world. Some high-profile athletes caught the media's attention, but not necessarily for their sporting abilities. Lolo Jones, a 100-meter hurdler, captured the spotlight after comments relating to her sexuality. Jones, a self-proclaimed faithful Christian, says she's a virgin at the age of 30. Shortly after making the comments, the media firestorm began. More attention was placed on Lolo Jones' sex life than what she would do as a competitor in the games. Here's my issue. Does it matter that Lolo is a virgin? Quite frankly, I really don't care. I think she's pretty attractive, but I'm more interested in why she didn't do so well in the 2012 Olympics. I think this whole virgin thing had something to do with it. My advice to Ms. Jones, in the future, stay focused on competing and keep your love life on the low. For more sports, I'm Taylor Moore.
Thanks, Taylor. And that's all for Coyote Sports. Coming up next, find out what advice upperclassmen think that new freshmen should hear.
This week on Coyote Commentary, Chrissy Sorensen compares being a student during the era of the USD U dot logo to the new SD logo.
And for Coyote Commentary, I'm Chrissy Sorensen, and I'm a coyote. If you enjoy the feeling of grass between your toes from the new green space, then you're a UDOT student. If you keep running into construction sites, then you're an SD student. If you spend your Wednesday nights watching U-News, then you just might be a UDOT student. If you watch Coyote News Wednesday nights live at 5, then you're an SD student. If you think the coolest place to live is McFadden, then you're probably a UDOT student. If Coyote Village is the place to be, then you're definitely an SD student. You might be a UDOT student if you're taking survey of business in Patterson Hall. You could call yourself an SD student if you're taking accounting with Davies in the Beacom School of Business. If Noah Shepard is the one you're rooting for at the football games, then you're a UDOT student. If you're rooting for Will Powell and his one-handed catches at the football games, then you're definitely an SD student. UDOT or SD, no matter what, you're a coyote. And for Coyote Commentary, I'm Chrissy Sorensen.
On Out and About, we asked upperclassmen what advice they have for new students this year. Freshmen, take note.
Some advice I would give freshmen would be to go to class, obviously, to get good grades.
And I'd tell every freshman, make sure they go check out all like the Dakota Days events. They're a lot of fun.
If you don't have to, don't press the crosswalk button.
Do not push that damn crosswalk button between North Complex and Patterson Hall.
Always leave your door open.
Don't skip class and stay caught up on your schoolwork.
Don't take a booth in the muck to yourself.
Talk to everyone on your floor. You can't party, don't drink.
Don't stick your crazy.
Definitely get involved with Greek life. It's a great way to network.
Get involved and focus on your studies.
Go to all your classes and do all your homework.
I would tell freshmen to definitely take advantage of the library.
Don't abuse your free time, but make sure you have plenty of time to still have fun.
Don't wear your lanyard around your neck because it's a dead giveaway that you're a freshman.
A new issue of the Volant hit newsstands today. Pick up your issue to read about the cramped quarters on campus, a preview of the 2012 football season, and which players to watch for this season. Those stories and more can be found on volantonline.com. You can also check out the Coyote News link on the page.
That's all for Coyote News. Don't forget to check us on Facebook and Twitter. If you tuned in late, you can catch the whole newscast online. Have a great night and a good weekend. We'll see you next time.